Professional wrestling is coming off an all-time high this past weekend in Las Vegas for Friday Night SmackDown, WrestleMania Night 1, WrestleMania Night 2, and arguably, the greatest Raw after WrestleMania of all time. There were so many big moments last night at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. I can't even count all of them. Randy Orton RKO, John Cena after John Cena said he was going to ruin wrestling. Bron Breakker joined forces with Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins to take out CM Punk and Roman Reigns. Becky Lynch, after returning at WrestleMania Night 2 to win the WWE Women's Tag Team titles, turns on Lyra Valkyria. Now we have Becky Lynch versus Lyra Valkyria for the Intercontinental Championship coming up as Becky Lynch turns heel. Who knows? Maybe she joins her husband and joins Paul Heyman and Bron Breakker. A lot went down last night. And a lot went down today on the Pat McAfee show. The Rock basically blaming Nick Khan, saying that it was all his fault that he was involved at Elimination Chamber. It was all his fault that he wasn't at WrestleMania. Not really, but he did say that he was only at Elimination Chamber because Nick Khan said that they needed to sell tickets for the event in Toronto. Is it BS? I don't think so. They know the business way better than us wrestling fans do on the internet. But let's talk about that first, because I think that's probably the biggest thing coming out of WrestleMania Night 2 that the fans desperately wanted to see, and it made everybody groan a little bit. Why wasn't the final boss at WrestleMania? Why would The Rock start this storyline with Cody Rhodes and Travis Scott and John Cena only to not show up at WWE's Super Bowl event, the granddaddy of them all, the mega event of all mega events for WWE, WrestleMania in Las Vegas Allegiant Stadium? He said it was because he wasn't even supposed to be a part of that storyline. Now, if you go all the way back to WrestleMania 40, The Rock comes in, wants to face Roman Reigns for the WWE Undisputed World title, right? We're going to get Rock, we're going to get Roman. A match that was probably a little over 4 years in the making at that time. That's why Roman Reigns was the tribal chief. He went on the Reign of Terror. You just knew at the end of the day, if they were making it about his bloodline and about the Samoan dynasty, Dwayne The Rock Johnson was going to get involved at some point, given that he is the high chief these days, apparently. The Rock then pivots with Paul Levesque and WWE executives to make it Roman versus Cody, and then The Rock was going to be Roman's heavy, essentially. We got Rock and Roman versus Seth and Cody in the tag team match, biggest tag team match in the history of WrestleMania. And then The Rock comes out on the Raw after WrestleMania in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the next night, flips off the crowd, tells the crowd to shut the fuck up on USA Network. Hands Cody what I assume was the watch that Cody had engraved for both Roman, Seth, and The Rock, as well as himself, all four of them for that tag team match. Probably handed it back to him broken, shattered. That's what I kind of assume. They never really paid that off because The Rock, despite Paul Levesque trying to tell unbelievable storytelling over the past few years since he's been in charge, The Rock kind of just shows up whenever he wants, and he shows up in the way that he wants, whether that be a babyface to promote whatever or to play the final boss, the heel character that he created about a little over a year ago. He comes back at Bad Blood in October after leaving. We didn't see him since the Raw after WrestleMania. He came back and said that when he came back, he was going to be gunning for Cody Rhodes. That's essentially what he said. Even though we don't really want to see Rock versus Cody, we'd rather see Rock versus Roman. He comes back at Bad Blood after Roman and Cody's tag team match against Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa, because at the time, Roman is trying to fight for the bloodline back. He's trying to fight for his wise man at the time. He's trying to fight for Jimmy Uso, who was taken out by the new bloodline. He was fighting for his Ula Fala because Solo Sikoa was the self-proclaimed tribal chief. And then The Rock comes out and does the famous 1, 2, 3, and he did it in words. And if you twist your fingers a little bit, you got the John Cena hustle, loyalty, and respect 3, which maybe was the first sign. And The Rock loves to take credit for his long-term storytelling and booking, and that, you know, there's always something going on, even though I don't really believe it at this point. He doesn't show up again until the Raw the Raw on Netflix, January 6th, the Raw debut on Netflix. He comes out and you're thinking, okay, the day before he announced that he was going to be on Raw as the High Chief and went through his entire bloodline Samoan dynasty and his entire family lineage with the Maivias and the Hawaii families, everything in between, right? Comes out and doesn't even act as a heel. He doesn't even act as the final boss. He acts as the head of the board, Dwayne Johnson, and essentially just plugs WWE, plugs Cody Rhodes, who he's supposed to be feuding with, and kisses him on the forehead and says he's a hell of a champion. Didn't make sense. Came out on the night. Actually, later on that night, he put the Ulafala over the head of Roman Reigns after Roman Reigns defeated Solo Sikoa. Didn't really make sense. Again, you're thinking, like, is this going to lead to Rock versus Roman, considering that he said that he was the High Chief? Nope, he just proclaimed Roman Reigns as his tribal chief, again, for the second time in a matter of 10 months. And then he shows up on NXT the night after and once again says, everybody shut up and enjoy the ride that The Rock's taking you on, because he's in control. He knows what he's doing, right? And I guess in that sense, we got the payoff to that. We didn't understand it at the time, why he was so nice on Raw and on NXT. But then he came back about a month and a half later on SmackDown and asked for Cody Rhodes' soul. And then at Elimination Chamber, he asked for Cody Rhodes' soul again. Cody told him to go fuck himself. And that's when we got the infamous a slash to the throat and the greatest of all time, Mr. Hustle, Loyalty, and Respect, the 16-time world champion at the time, John Cena, made his shocking heel turn for the first time in 22 years. So that's where we stood with The Rock, right? Now we're thinking, okay, he's John Cena's heavy for this match against Cody Rhodes for the undisputed WWE Championship in the main event of Night 2 of WrestleMania. And then come WrestleMania Night 2, we have not seen or heard from The Rock since Elimination Chamber. It's been over a month and a half since we even heard The Rock, his involvement in this John Cena and Cody Rhodes feud. You're thinking when Travis Scott's music hits, The Rock's coming out with him. I think that's what everybody thinks in Allegiant Stadium. All we got was Travis Scott. He was the only interference in the main event of Night 2 of WrestleMania, and John Cena wins his historic 17th World Heavyweight Championship in the most boring way that he possibly could have done it. So where was The Rock? I didn't expect to get an answer so quick, but less than 48 hours after the match, The Rock is on the Pat McAfee show, and he basically, and this is not verbatim, but I'm paraphrasing here, Nick Khan gave him a call. Nick Khan, the CEO of WWE, the chief executive officer, gave him a call and said that they needed to sell more tickets for the Elimination Chamber in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. That's where Elimination Chamber was. The main event was obviously the number one contender match for the WWE title with John Cena, CM Punk, Logan Paul, Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest. No disrespect to the sixth man, but I can't quite put a finger on him. Oh, of course, it was the visionary Seth frickin' Rollins who just turned with Paul Heyman at WrestleMania. The Rock essentially explained to Pat McAfee and his guru of guys that he wasn't supposed to be there. He was not supposed to be on this build-up to WrestleMania. He phrased Elimination Chamber, the PLE itself, as the third wheel on the road to WrestleMania, and it is WrestleMania, Royal Rumble. Those are the two big ones. Royal Rumble comes in January, Elimination Chamber in February, WrestleMania first week in April. This year, the Rumble was February 1st, Elimination Chamber was March 1st, and then WrestleMania was the 19th and the 20th, about 2 weeks later than it normally is. So The Rock basically confirmed he was not supposed to be a part of this WrestleMania build, which, I mean, would have made sense given that his promo on Raw, on Netflix, and on NXT was a very face version of himself that we hadn't seen in over a year. So the final boss character should have been dead and buried the night after WrestleMania 40 last year, in my opinion. The Rock kind of made it seem like he was coming back for Cody Rhodes, which would probably make you assume that he was probably going to come back and have that eventual payoff match with Roman Reigns at some point. Doesn't seem like we're getting any of that anymore, according to The Rock on the Pat McAfee show today. The headline is that The Rock was not supposed to be a part of this storyline. He was only a part of this storyline because Nick Khan said that he needed to help him sell tickets, and he created this storyline essentially to not only sell tickets, but to also be a big, prominent part in turning John Cena heel. Why? Why is that the excuse? Why didn't he just, as a performer, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, the corporate executive or the superstar or just the flat-out actor, entertainer that he is, should know that in professional wrestling, the fans remember everything. For years, Vince McMahon kind of made it known that the fans won't remember this, they don't care about this, they won't remember that theme song, they won't remember that character, they won't remember that entrance music, that ring attire. Fans remember everything, at least those that are really inclined to watching the product. The Rock, essentially, in this situation, all year long, he had the greatest build that we've ever seen on the road to WrestleMania 40, with his feud with Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. And then he comes back this year in arguably the greatest storytelling era that the WWE has ever had, and it's just really messing up a lot of storylines, man. I'll give them credit for Elimination Chamber. They pulled off one of the top 3 moments in the history of professional wrestling. Not one of the top 3 moments in WWE, one of the top 3 moments in the history of professional wrestling in turning John Cena heel against Cody Rhodes. Other than that, he shouldn't have been a part of the storyline if he wasn't going to be a part of it moving forward, because it's WrestleMania, man. It's the biggest WrestleMania of all time. 6 months ago, we thought he was going to have a match. 6 months ago, he even said we're at the 1-yard line of creating the biggest match in WrestleMania history. 6 months ago, he told a fan on Instagram saying, whoever told you I wasn't competing at WrestleMania is complete BS. I don't want to say he lied. He's one of the most successful men on the planet, one of the most successful entertainers, one of the most successful business owners, one of the most successful entrepreneurs that the world has to offer today, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Not just a WWE superstar, but just a trendsetter, a trailblazer in the entertainment industry today. But he should have had the hindsight to know that fans were going to be upset and that he was an integral part of this story. You're the final boss. You're the head of the board. You're the boss. You're the evil emperor to John Cena's Darth Vader, and you don't show up for the Super Bowl event that the WWE. This is the WWE Super Bowl in WrestleMania. This is where you pay off the story, or at least continue the story. If John Cena won his title with interference from The Rock, awesome. I would have loved that ending. The fact that he wasn't there and John Cena won in the most heelish, blandest way that he could have won just goes to show you that they thought that was going to be a really good choice, and they thought that was going to be really entertaining, but it really wasn't. And you don't hit home runs every time you step up to the plate. Sometimes you strike out. That was a strikeout in that moment of Night 2 of WrestleMania. But in the main event of the biggest show with arguably the 2 biggest stars, this is what Hulk Hogan versus The Rock was at WrestleMania 18. This was your current guy in Cody Rhodes versus your former guy that got you to the point that you're at now in John Cena. And it totally underdelivered, and in a big part because Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson did not show up, and essentially he said because he wasn't supposed to be there to begin with, and that Nick Khan needed to sell tickets for the Elimination Chamber. I'm just not buying it. I don't love that excuse. As a performer, you should know that you should have been there to continue this story with John Cena and Travis Scott, given that a month ago you even said that they might all team up together. So it's kind of lame that The Rock was not there. Anywho, let's talk about some positives. And the biggest positive coming out of this weekend, I don't think it was WrestleMania Night 1, even though we had one of the greatest main events of all time. I personally think it was one of the greatest triple threat matches of all time with CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins. It wasn't Night 2, and Night 2 we had a lot of bangers, man. We had the triple threat between Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, and Io Sky. We had Dominic Mysterio winning the Intercontinental Championship in a fatal four-way with Finn Balor, Penta, and Braun Breaker. Randy Orton RKO Joe Hendry in the most entertaining way that he possibly could. We had a lot of cool moments at WrestleMania. Logan Paul defeating AJ Styles in a very good technically wrestling match. The main event, under-delivered, but that's okay. We just talked about it. It's okay. You can't hit a home run on every swing that you take. WrestleMania Night 2 was not the highlight of the weekend. Last night, Monday Night Raw, the Raw after WrestleMania from T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, was, in my opinion, the greatest Raw after WrestleMania we've ever seen. It may have been one of the greatest Raws in general that we've ever seen because there was not one dull moment. Me and a friend of mine back in I would say the 2014 through 2017 era, when we were really watching the product, but we didn't really enjoy anything that we saw, there were a lot of matches that we dubbed piss break matches. There were no piss break matches on Raw after WrestleMania last night. From minute one to the last minute, it was entertaining with shocking moments, big appearances, big moments that were very emotionally filled. I mean, how did we start off the show last night? With the 17-time WWE Champion John Cena, giving us nothing. If there was a dull moment all night long, it was that just because John Cena was playing a dull heel right now. But what did we get right off the bat? A huge, devastating RKO, reigniting arguably the greatest rivalry of the PG WWE era. John Cena versus Randy Orton is now set, presumably, for WWE Backlash in St. Louis, Missouri, Randy Orton's hometown. So we have that right off the bat. Then what do we have next? We have a WWE Women's Tag Team title match. A title match right off the bat at Raw after WrestleMania. Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria taking on Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan. And they win the titles back after Becky Lynch returned the night before and won the titles. Becky Lynch turns heel against Lyra Valkyria. And now we have an awesome Intercontinental Championship match for the women. Probably the biggest women's Intercontinental... I'm getting ahead of myself here, getting too excited. The biggest women's Intercontinental Championship match that we've probably had since they introduced the title last year with Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria. And then we had Rusev returning for the first time in 5 years. He had his stint in AEW. He took a year off. He got divorced from Lana. He remarried Lana. They're back together. Yeah, he got married. He got divorced. He got married again to Lana. Happens with the best of them. I wish them the best of luck. Rusev returns to the WWE as probably in the best shape he's ever been in. He's jacked, he's cut, he looks good, he looks healthy, it looks like he's really taking care of himself, and I'm excited to see what Rusev does on this run moving forward in 2025 with the WWE. Jey Uso celebrated with the crowd, yeeted with the crowd, yeet, yeet, yeet. He yeeted with Sami Zayn, he yeeted with Jimmy Uso. I thought as soon as Sami Zayn came out, we were going to get the first big feud of this World Championship reign for Jey Uso. It was going to break my heart after watching him win the world title live at WrestleMania Night 1 on Saturday against Gunther. But no, we just got a feel-good moment with former Bloodline members, Jimmy and Jay, obviously Sami Zayn, the honorary Uso. Just a feel-good moment between those three guys. Though I will say, a rivalry with either Jimmy Uso or Sami Zayn would be great long-form storytelling for this Jey Uso World Heavyweight title reign. So keep that in mind. I think Jey Uso needs to have a very relevant and very entertaining World Heavyweight Championship reign. I'm sure Gunther's going to get his rematch, and we're going to see Gunther versus Jey Uso for the title in another match here coming up soon. I'd love to see how they can get to Jey Uso versus Sami Zayn. I think that's a Big Four pay-per-view type match. Maybe save it for SummerSlam or even WrestleMania next year. If you really want to keep the title on Jey Uso that long, Jey versus Jimmy, you could run it back. Jey versus Roman for the world title. That elevates the world title scene right there. Possibly Seth Rollins, given his rivalry with Roman Reigns right now. Maybe he turns his attention to his cousin. I think there's a lot of interesting ways that the WWE can go for the World Heavyweight title scene with Jey Uso. But we had a feel-good moment there. We had a classic NXT champion versus WWE Women's Championship match. And then the main event. And this was the most interesting part, despite the rest of the show being really, 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 really good. Seth Rollins comes out with Paul Heyman. First time ever that those two making an entrance after Paul Heyman turned on CM Punk and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Seth Rollins calls himself a visionary. He calls himself the man that stole the wise man, stole the best friend. Punk comes out right away. Punk and Rollins going at it. Punk tries to get his hands on Heyman. Rollins intervenes, curb stomps CM Punk. And that's when the credits roll. We see the executive producers, Lee Fitting, Paul Levesque. We think that's the end of the show. Paul Heyman calls Seth Rollins the number one superstar in today's WWE. And Seth Rollins does his thing, and we think it's going to fade to black, but then Roman Reigns' music hits, and that's when you think, okay, they rolled the credits way too early. Here comes Roman Reigns. Here comes the Tribal Chief. Immediately spears Seth Rollins. So I'm thinking, okay, they're already burying Seth Rollins 2 days after his big push. And then we already get the moment that I thought that they were probably going to hold off of for a long time, and that's Roman Reigns Superman punching Paul Heyman. We see it right away. And then I'm thinking, oh my God, the show's going to end with Seth Rollins on his back and Roman Reigns spearing Paul Heyman. He gears up. He does the roar. Everybody roars with him at T-Mobile Arena. And I'm thinking something's got to happen. Seth Rollins is probably going to pull his leg from underneath, slide him out of the ring, curb stomp him or something. I'm like, Roman's going for the spear. And I didn't guess it. He wasn't on the show the entire night after losing the Intercontinental Championship the night before at WrestleMania. Braun Breaker, out of nowhere, spears Roman Reigns in half. And in that moment, in an instant, you realize that Paul Heyman went shopping like he said he was going to do on the Pat McAfee show. We have Paul Heyman aligned with Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker spears CM Punk. Braun Breaker then does the merry-go-round around the ring and spears Roman Reigns with force through the barricade. And that's how we end the Raw after WrestleMania with the new alliance of Paul Heyman, Seth Rollins, and Braun Breaker. I love it. I didn't think I was going to see it 2 nights ago. 3 nights ago now. 3 nights ago, we had 2 Paul Heyman guys. Their names were CM Punk and Roman Reigns. 48 hours later, we got 2 Paul Heyman guys. Their names are Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker. Perfect way to elevate Braun Breaker. Now, Braun Breaker was in a good spot as the Intercontinental Champion, held on to that title for the majority of 2024 into 2025, defends it in a fatal 4-way match, which was a phenomenal wrestling match between the 4, but Penta, Finn Balor, and Dominic Mysterio, with all due respect, are still very much in the mid-card scene, and they have been very good doing it. Dominic Mysterio just turned into a babyface all of a sudden, man. Everybody loves him. Everybody hated the guy, and now everybody loves him. And that's professional wrestling at its finest. How can you not be romantic about professional wrestling when it comes to Dominic Mysterio? But Braun Breaker now has an opportunity to become one of WWE's main event stars by partnering with arguably the greatest manager of all time. Everybody loves to compare Bobby Heenan. I think that's the one name that you can compare Paul Heyman to, but I think Paul Heyman, man. Roman Reigns, greatest champion of all time, 1,306 days with Paul Heyman, the wise man, by his side. CM Punk, one of the greatest WWE champions of the modern era with a title reign of 434 days with Paul Heyman. Brock Lesnar ends The Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania 30 with Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman, in my opinion, is the greatest manager of all time. Paul Heyman now gets the privilege and the opportunity, as well does Braun Breaker, it's vice versa. They're both benefiting a lot. Paul Heyman gets to stay in the main event scene with one of WWE's fastest rising stars in Scott Steiner's nephew, Bronson Steiner, a.k.a. Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker now has an opportunity to face the likes of CM Punk. He now has the opportunity to fight the likes of the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns, which gives him the biggest opportunity of his WWE career. And hey, don't forget, Seth Rollins is now the biggest heel in the WWE alongside John Cena. So now Seth Rollins has an opportunity to rewrite the last few years of his career. Seth Rollins has been the guy that everybody calls the MVP of the WWE. He was the MVP of WrestleMania 40, and he was, man. At WrestleMania 40, Seth Rollins was in the main event of Night 1 with Cody Rhodes teaming up to take on The Rock and Roman Reigns, the Bloodline, with a very bad knee. He then had to defend, after a 45-minute match that night, had to defend the World Heavyweight Championship to kick off Night 2 of WrestleMania against Drew McIntyre. And that was a finisher fest, but what a match that was. And he loses the World Heavyweight Championship. And then he comes out for the main event of night 2 and tries to screw The Rock and Roman Reigns, and he does successfully, as we all know. But he did it with literally one leg. Couldn't even walk to the ring. He had nothing left to give. That's why Seth Rollins was the MVP of WrestleMania 40, and that's why many consider him the MVP of WWE. Because as popular as Roman Reigns has gotten, as big of a star and as big of a trailblazer and as big of a trendsetter and a needle mover that Roman Reigns is, Seth Rollins was the guy that showed up day in and day out while Roman Reigns became a part-time superstar. And that's just the bottom line. Seth Rollins deserves to go on a run now, a legendary run like Roman Reigns did, with Roman Reigns' wise man, Paul Heyman, by his side. There's so much great storytelling to talk about there. Eventually, I guess we're going to get CM Punk and Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker. I don't know if we're going to see it as early as Backlash or maybe as late as SummerSlam, but I'm sure that tag team match is going to happen at some point. We're probably going to get CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. We're going to get CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. We're going to get CM Punk versus, like I said, Roman Reigns. We're going to get Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns. We're going to get CM Punk versus Bron Breakker. We're going to get Roman Reigns versus Bron Breakker. And then at the end of the day, if Paul Heyman's history is any indication, we're probably going to get Seth Rollins versus Bron Breakker too. So there is so much stories, so many stories to tell if you're Paul Levesque over the next year, the next 2 years, the next 3 years with that one storyline alone. So that is why it was the greatest Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania, I think, in WWE history. Now we got to move forward to SmackDown. John Cena is going to be on SmackDown. What is he going to say after getting RKO'd by Randy Orton? This is a great, you couldn't have asked for a better WWE Championship scene after John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. The biggest good guy WWE has seen since Hulk Hogan versus probably one of the biggest good guy, the biggest good guy of the PG era, one of the guys on the Mount Rushmore of WWE permanently now that he's a 17-time world champion, John Cena, who's now a mega heel that we've never thought we were going to see. How do you top that? Cody Rhodes, I'm assuming, is going to go away for a little bit. He's going to take a break. And he can, because John Cena, we know he can carry that torch. Cody Rhodes goes away maybe for a month or two, comes back around Money in the Bank, comes back around SummerSlam to take John Cena on again in a rematch. Randy Orton steps to the plate, and it makes perfect sense, not only because John Cena and Randy Orton have fought like hell over the last 15 years, Hell in a Cell, Iron Man, I Quit. They've done it all. John Cena versus Randy Orton sells itself. And we thought that was probably going to be John Cena's final match. We thought it was going to be his final match at WrestleMania, or we thought it was going to be his final match ever versus Randy Orton. We're getting it way earlier because Backlash is in Randy Orton's hometown of St. Louis. He's going to be the mega babyface. Cena's going to be the mega heel for the WWE title. And for all those people thinking, all right, we're getting Cena versus Orton early, that means at Money in the Bank on June 7th in Los Angeles, we're going to get the rematch from Money in the Bank 2011, John Cena, CM Punk. I don't want to crush anybody's hopes and dreams, but I don't think it makes sense. I think we're going to see John Cena versus CM Punk at some point, and as nostalgic as it would be to get those two wrestling for the WWE Championship at Money in the Bank in Los Angeles, nearly 14 years after CM Punk walked out with the championship at the Allstate Arena against John Cena, it would literally be deja vu, John Cena walking in with CM Punk as the challenger. The only difference is CM Punk wanted to walk out with the championship and leave the WWE in 2011. Now John Cena wants to walk out with the title in 2025. I just don't think, I think it would be rushed. And I don't think it would live up to the hype. Again, it would be nostalgic. I don't think it would be as good of a wrestling match as 2011's was. And I think it would ruin the legacy of that match. In my opinion, would I like to see it? Would I be happy if it happened? Hell yeah. But I just think I think CM Punk's embroidered in a rivalry with Paul Heyman, Seth Rollins, and Bron Breakker and Roman Reigns right now. I don't think it makes sense. But I could be wrong. John Cena's going to have a lot of great matches on this retirement tour. There's so many big faces that he could face. He's going to face Randy Orton at Backlash. He's probably going to face AJ Styles again at some point. He's going to face CM Punk at some point. He's going to face Cody Rhodes again at some point. We're going to see a lot of great matches in this final run for John Cena. What do you guys think is going to happen moving forward? There's so much to get into. Jey Uso's title run, Braun Breaker joining forces with Paul Heyman, John Cena's trying to ruin wrestling by leaving with the title. What's going to give here moving forward? All right, that's all I got. Get out of here.